They say it's a rainy state, but I bring the sunshine.
Right.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Removing Labels podcast, where we are challenging the status quo. We, as citizens, are tired of the divisive campaigns that go on every political year, especially every 4 years when the presidential race comes around. Our thing is that we all have something in common. We want good jobs, we want safe communities. So we want to focus more on the things that unite us rather than divide us because that's what diversity really should mean. Today, I am your host, Ilona Kearney, running for governor here in Washington State 2024. Alongside with me is my co host,
Sean Gamble.
and we also have a special guest. So can you announce our special guest?
Our guest is Amari Millie, one of my alum from University of Washington, a profound brother that deals with recidivism in our youth. He's a author, he's a scholar, he's an all-around good gentleman, and we're going to have the privilege of talking to Brother Omari about some interesting topics today.
Appreciate it.
Yes. And one of my things is the policies. So a lot of you guys want to know my policies. I know I have them on my page, but they're not just like written all the way out. One of my policies is about restorative justice. It's important that we have reduced recidivism because one thing is if you don't learn to forgive, by the way, in my personal life, I'm a forgiveness coach, and forgiveness is very important. When you welcome people back into society, we have to give them the tools and the access to be able to be constructive and part of the whole community. And if you don't do that, then what do? They're going to go back into the whole system, and that causes more problems for us as a community. When we say that we want safe communities, we have to look at the whole wraparound services of what we're providing. And so Omari is going to be our specialist on this. And can you tell us about your book and a little bit about yourself?
For sure. So the book that I have here today is called Transforming Society's Failure from Felonies to College Degrees. It's a memoir where I pretty much just detail my journey going from a real disadvantaged background, parents in addiction, dealing with homelessness, chronic instability, getting kicked out of school at a really young age, and it just leading me down this path that where I ultimately found myself incarcerated, 30 felonies for bank fraud. I didn't have a lot of positive role models growing up. I didn't have a lot of programs I was a part of or any real guidance. So I really just had to find my own way. And one of the ways that I found my own way after my release from prison was through post-secondary education. So going to college and, educating myself by reading, through interactions with other people, being in environments that I had never been in. It was just a nonstop transformative experience all the way from the community college level up to grad school where I earned a master's degree. So that's what this book is about, just pretty much my personal journey. And it has a lot of, stuff in there for people who come from backgrounds similar to mine, where they can learn from my mistakes, where they might see some similarities to themselves and where they might be able to find some purpose. I hear that the book is really inspirational and motivational for other people, even though that wasn't my intention. So this is one of the books I wrote. I also wrote two children's books, one called In Search of Role Models and one called Skin Deep as well.
Wow.
Awesome. And and when I think about this subject too, as we're talking about it, pretty much all of us have a little experience in something on this panel. I don't personally, I've never been to jail. However, my husband has been in prison for 24 years for murder. So I share that freely because number one, you can drop in the comments, hashtag I'm politically correct and hashtag I'm not that candidate. I'm not your perfect candidate. I'm not the candidate, like we say, that goes with the status quo. And so rather than having you go dig it up because you're going to find it out anyhow, we need to humanize the people in our community. So if you'd like to share anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I am someone who has been incarcerated. I was on the tail end of my military career after being attacked overseas and was self medicating because I had been overprescribed medication while I was in the military and had a severe reaction where I was almost pronounced dead in the shower. And so what that led to ultimately was a distrust in a whole bunch of systems, but predominantly within the medical system, because I felt that there was a problem with when it pertained to specifically non-white soldiers, minoritized peoples. And so there's a whole history behind that outside of what we're talking about today. But what it ended up leading to was me self-medicating with cannabis, and then I was set up a month after I got out of the military, and from having a stress-induced seizure to flatlining and having to be resuscitated, and then still having to go to court after I got out of the hospital, and then going to prison, it led me to this place where I was disenchanted for the first 3 months of my incarceration, where I pretty much slept 18 hours a day, until I had a conversation with this guy, changed my whole perspective. It led to me starting my art business, using art as a therapy tool, working with children, using art as a tool to heal my PTSD from the attack and the subsequent incarceration, and just a whole host of things that I hadn't really processed from my childhood. And so my experiences with not only just the desire never to go back to prison, but what was I going to make myself in lieu of being an ex-con? What was my outcome going to be? And I can tell you honestly, like, it is a struggle some days to even incorporate myself into this reality, because I don't see the representation. I don't see the genuine challenging of narratives. I see virtue signaling. I see people who like to take Black Lives Matter hashtags and put it in a $1 million front yard, and no one looks like us in their communities. The virtue signaling has gotten so egregious that it makes me want to fully dissociate. I want to be one of those people who's like, you know what, I want to be apathetic, because I've experienced this and I know that these people don't actually care. And so being a part of something like this, being a part of, working within your campaign, and it's shown me that we can invest in policies and politics in such a way that is authentic and genuine to our struggles and the struggles of people who aren't represented in large, regardless of what their background is, regardless of what their ethnicity is. We have the opportunity to really challenge that. And I appreciate being here and being able to support you with that.
Yes. And like I said, the policies is, about making sure that we have this unified thing where we're all working together. We're not seeing, like I'll say, I have this thing where there's this game that says, I am, but I'm not. So you can say, I'm Black, but I'm not ghetto, or I'm this, but I'm not, the stereotype that somebody labels us as. My husband, he ran for city council 2 years ago, and he got a lot of votes. He wasn't able to get out and campaign and knock on doors, but he got a lot of votes for not being able to do that. So it shows that society is welcoming and wanting to bring more, tired of being labeled, tired of this status quo, because where has the status quo gotten us? It hasn't gotten us to a more unified nation, and we're not in a place where we're doing better with taxes. We're going on talking points rather than get to know the person. And today I would like to just go ahead and we can just dive in on some of these things. And because I know with dealing with restorative justice, it comes from all aspects. We have police brutality, but there's what people always have to remember is we can't say all police are bad. They're good police. Then there's that group of
Sorry about that.
Happens to the best.
Look,
I don't even know what that alarm was
look,
for.
I'll pause it like this, and then I'll just cut it. But there's those groups that everybody knows that needs to be held accountable. And how do we create accountability by not punishing a whole force because we want to reward good? How can we create a wraparound service is what I say. And for me, when I'm governor, what will be done is, first off, ex-felons can't go into schools and be mentors. But if they come in there with the police, we had, McGruff and Smokey the Bear, who used to come in, and that was to bring awareness, to make you, you know that when you practice something more, when a situation happens that might be traumatic, it's not going to be as traumatic because you know how to respond and in those type of things. So if they have that relationship where they see the ex-felon with the police and they're working together and they're being this mentorship program and being able to talk to the youth. I'm not going to force police to live in the community, but give incentives to live in the community that you serve because there's a relationship there. And if officer so and so comes to your community, well, hey, so and so live down the street. He knows these families. Yeah. How do we need to go about this because you have a relationship in this community? So there's different things of building those cross bridge relationships, and so I'll bring you in and give you the talking stick.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about restorative justice, that relationship is at the heart of it. If there's not a relationship, then what are you actually restoring to begin with, right? So if you have an individual who caused harm to somebody else and their neighbors, there's much higher stakes, in restoring this thing. If it's somebody who's far off, you're never going to really see again, you still want to conduct yourself in that way. Restorative as a culture, as just a way of being. But, when you mentioned that word relationship, that was something that really stood out to me. And, you talked about individuals with convictions not being able to volunteer in schools. It's just so much deeper. All the collateral consequences, all the different barriers need to be removed from individuals becoming those full members of society. If we're going to talk about restorative justice, too often, it's like, what are we restoring folks to? Like, are we really hitting the mark? Are we really doing what we intend to do? And what that needs to be is when the individuals released from incarceration, they serve their time, they're not releasing back into the community and continuing to serve more and more time through loss of employment opportunities, loss of housing opportunities, loss of benefits and things that they might need to keep themselves afloat. So I think, with you running for governor, it's going to put you in a powerful position, where you can really make a difference in these areas. And I love the fact that it's personal to you. Like, you actually have a husband who has been there. How many people can say that who have ever even been on the ballot for governor? So I really feel like it takes folks who have those close connections and those lived experiences to change the game. So I'm excited about what the future holds.
And also with like with that relationship, I forgot. There's another word I can't think of it. Maybe you guys know it. You have restorative justice, but there's another word that they use when they're bringing somebody back into society.
Reintegration.
No, not reintegration, but my husband, he said the word, I'm just gonna say by the definition of the word, he said, how do you bring somebody back to something that they've never been?
Transformative justice, is that what you're talking about?
Well, it didn't have justice in there. It's like, it was another word that they've been using prior to restorative justice. So when
maybe you will know.
When it's like a second chance, and then
I've heard reentry. I've heard like all those things, but I'm not sure what this one is.
I'll have to ask him, and I'll plug it in here under the thing when I do. But he said that if a person does not know anything other than that lifestyle, how are you saying that you're rehabilitated? Yeah. Rehabilitating. He said you cannot how are you rehabilitating them to, like, if I injured my knee and I go through rehabilitation, you're trying to get me back to where I was.
For sure.
But let's say I've never had the activity or the use of this, and it's not functional because let's say it might be paralyzed. So what are you rehabilitating it back
your
to?
Baseline. So if you're, I think what we're talking about is a readjustment of baseline.
Yeah.
Because I know that my social, emotional, and intellectual baseline was less than zero. Mm-hmm. And so the examples that I had in childhood, the examples that I had in young adulthood, even in the military, my baseline was trauma-based. And so when I'm looking at who I am now, I can operate maybe at a baseline of zero. Sometimes I dip below it because of, when you've been into something so long, that's your operating system. Yeah. And we have to rewrite our operating systems when we have a baseline less than zero. When I say baseline, I mean you have no trauma. You come into the world as a child, that's your baseline.
Yeah.
And then the world happens to you as a child. And you go and you develop and you underdevelop.
Yeah.
And you lose that emotional intelligence that you're supposed to have, and then you're rehabilitated back to your negative baseline. What good is that? It puts people right back where they started. No resources, no training, because we don't just need physical training. We don't need just job training. We need psychological, psychosocial, emotional training
Yes.
that prevents recidivism. And I mean, it took me 8 years to get from prison to a functional job. And that functional job was retail. Like, that was the highest I could aspire to before I got my military disability. What, not to say there's anything wrong with retail, but if I aspire to more and this is the best I can do, my baseline is never going to be zero.
One of the things is we have a punishment system. We don't have a rehabilitative system. We have a system that punishes, locks you up, takes you away from your family, takes you away from your community. Once again, the collateral consequences that come with just having that record. So, I mean, how does punishment play a role in that rehabilitation? It doesn't. So if you find yourself incarcerated and you see anything close to rehabilitation, it's going to be because of those men who were in there next to you, those women who were in there next to you, who decided, look, let's come together, let's start something, let's hold each other accountable, let's be each other's support group, because the system overall, it does not offer rehabilitation.
There's certain books you can't even get in prison. There's certain things you can't even study in prison. Like, maybe not specifically in Washington State, but I have heard stories of people, there are banned book lists for certain subject matters in prisons all across the country. Like, if the goal is rehabilitation, then why are you limiting the capacity of people's growth? It doesn't make any sense. And then it gets us to this conversation on, the W.E.B. Du Bois or the Booker T side of the conversation of, is it jobs? Is it education? Is it, these trade programs? Like, how are we looking at recidivism as a tool when most of our trade jobs are out of the country? Our manufacturing jobs are out of the country. These are one of the things that made America a stable country, and we can't even give people jobs that they had in prison outside of here. They're making 12 cents an hour making something like T-shirts or something. Then they come out here, and unless they live in China, they can't make those T-shirts. Like, it's, sorry, I'm on a soapbox.
And seeing that goes back to the stereotypes that people have. And so when someone, we have these two sides of the owl, in which I hate to talk about two sides of the owl, but we're just going to talk about the reality of it. One side is saying this community is, they get what they want. They just want free handouts. That's all they want. They don't want to do better. These type of things. Well, this community is saying, no, we're asking for hand-ups, not handouts. We're asking for tools, the access for tools. So I think that if both sides would take the time to sit down and listen and understand, you kind of both are saying the same thing, even though you're saying that this community doesn't want it. They're saying we do want to do better. But the thing is, a person can want to do better, but if they don't know how, then you can't. What is it? It's bad to just constantly jab and things. So, excuse my scenario. Hashtag I'm politically correct again. If you constantly tell a person they're fat, it doesn't make them lose weight. First off, sometimes it has to do with other situations. They might have thyroid issues, all of these things, but you judged a person based on their look or based on something rather than getting to know that person or finding other ways to help them. So rather than crapping on communities, and it gets frustrating with the black-white situation because there's, number one, more cultures in this. I'll see videos that'll say, you got a black mom when they get up with this music. Guess what? I see a Hispanic thing saying, you got a Hispanic mom when she get up and put music on. You got an Asian mom when she put this kind of music. So we all do the same thing. It's not specific. No culture just specifically owns anything. Yeah. So that tells that we are the same in a lot of ways, but we're over here saying it's mine, and things, rather than focusing on, you know what, you're good at cooking. I like eating. So I'm gonna come back from you and support it. Sure. And then how can we work together? How can we support that? And so don't get mad when we say we want to provide tools to, hey, schools, I know that's not my job. My job is providing the budget as governor. But I would want to say, provide these kids with financial education, provide them with the education to be able to start their own businesses, because everybody is not a worker bee.
Absolutely.
So stop forcing us all into this mold and saying you're just giving us the base to be into society, when our kids, and I'm not saying our kids like black kids, I'm talking about our kids, especially in our disadvantaged communities, don't have the privilege of going home to a two-parent home all the time. But they do have two parents, might not be married, but two people might be there taking care of them and loving them. So stop feeding us this whole thing that not having two married parents in the home is what's making us bad citizens, or contributing to that. Because I was a single mom. I just recently got married. I raised two beautiful children. Neither one of them have been pregnant, had babies before they're 20, 22, and 23. Never had kids, never been in trouble. They've gone to college. I homeschooled them. So they've gone to college, have their AA degree. One is doing computer networking. So don't put us in this box as if that's what makes us and that's what defines our narrative. And if I could offer my kids more, if I had money, or if I had those things offered in the system, the community around me, I would have put my kids in that, because I want more for them. I want them to have more than what I had. I want to break a barrier and a generational pattern of poverty from mine. I'm the first to own a house. So, I want to keep doing that. So if more tools were there, guess what? My kids would have those too, because I love my kids that much.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, because, looking at Sammy, Soda, Idea, and those schools that are getting away from this industrial revolution model, breed good citizens to go into the military, go into the workforce type of system, right? These schools are creating, these pathways of different types of thinking and approaches to reality. I was just talking to someone about 2 weeks ago, and the registration for Sammy was abysmal. And so no one's signing up. These schools are challenging these typical narratives. And so one of the things I'm big on is, let's call out the nonsense. But when there is a situation that will allow for the rectifying of egregious behaviors, such as the public school system, which we're dealing with right now, that's a whole conversation in itself. But when there are opportunities and situations, let's figure out why we're not enrolling our children in these schools, in these programs. Why is there no advertisement for these types of programs? Why are we not hearing that, hey, there was less than a 20% enrollment in Sammy for next semester? What? Our tax dollars are paying for this. And so now we're overfunding something, because I guarantee you it costs more to run these programs than it does cost to run a standard system when you're looking at the K through 12 system. And so the goal is to figure out, how can we get our children interested in something outside of just like, oh, I want to do sports. I want to just go and sit in school and graduate. I want to do something critical like acting. Sorry, I'm a soapbox.
What I'm hearing from what both of you guys are saying is, how do we introduce possibilities? The possibility of being a homeowner. Like, had you never been a homeowner, your children probably aren't thinking about that, right? Like, they have to actually see it within their proximity. I grew up in homeless shelters and things like that. So you think I grew up thinking about being a homeowner? There's no way. When you talk about even just enrolling in these different schools, how many young people have been introduced to the possibility? Like, this is something you can actually do. You don't have to go to Lincoln or Mount Tahoma. There's some other options out there for you. The possibilities are not being introduced. And it's the same when individuals released from prison. Like, they're going to go apply for that job where they heard all the felons are getting hired. Where's the felon-friendly employer and things like that. They never thought about the fact that they can open a business a lot of the time, that they can go get an education a lot of the time, or that they can enter a field where they can get to a living wage. Sometimes they think they're just stuck. All I heard, the narrative when I was locked up, was you're not going to find a place to live, you're not going to get a job. There's a lot of negative thinking, and that's because the possibilities have not been introduced. Like, who's going inside of these places, engaging with air? Like, if you're lucky enough to be on a call out to hear a speaker, like if you or I were to go inside of a prison and share our story. That's one way that possibilities are introduced. But how many, there's going to be like 20, 30 people there, possibly. How many people are actually in that prison? So these guys got introduced to the possibilities, but the majority are just left out of that. The individuals who are in the hole, the individuals who might have behavioral issues, getting infractions, not being allowed to be on the call out. So when I hear you guys talking, that's just what's ringing in my mind. It's just possibilities, and how do we introduce them to young people, to people releasing from prison, to those who are the most marginalized, you know, those who find the least opportunity in society the way that it's set up right now.
Yeah. When I had my husband to run for city council, that was one thing. He said, "Oh, I can't run for city council." I said, "There's no law that says that you can't run. It says all you have to be is 18 or older, be a registered voter, and reside where you want to run." That's all it says. And the only thing that disqualifies you is if you ever committed insurrection. That's the only thing. Other than that, you can run. And so he's like, so when he put his name on the ballot and he was out there, like we meet people in stores and tell them he's running, because we didn't go door to door. But he became more confident when he came across people say, "Bro, but you was in prison for murder of all things." But then he spoke on, "I don't want to defund the police, because if that system was not there to hold me accountable for what I did, I probably would still be a menace to society." So, so he was able to speak up for himself, and it built his self-confidence and his self-esteem in getting me pushing him out there. I tried to get him to run again or something, but it's same thing with myself. When I looked up, I asked both Republicans and Democrats, what does it take to run for governor? Nobody wanted to give me an answer, but start from the bottom and work your way up. I said, that's the status quo way. Yeah. Because one issue we always have is people go in and they make all these promises, or they are genuine people in our communities and start out with good intentions and then turn bad. And we're like, what happened? Because we started from the bottom and worked our way up and being groomed. At some point in that grooming, if you want to get to a certain level, you have to bend over and do whatever it is that they're asking you to do.
Message.
I was getting ready to get real down and ratchet with it.
Get your Cat Williams on.
But you know what? But that's the facts, though. And I think that's one of the problems, is that when you have honest conversations with people, they're left in disbelief. And they're so used to this milquetoast, this very just like universal system of understanding. Like politics, we just know that they're going to sling mud across the aisle, but it's like Jesse Ventura said, like over like 20 years now, he's like, politics is just pro wrestling. When they're in front of the camera or when they're in the ring, they're slinging mud back and forth. They cracking each other with chairs and calling this person a communist, calling this person a alt-right. And then as soon as they get out of them hallway, they out there drinking together, partying together, doing God knows what. I mean, you can just look up what the people in Washington, D.C. are doing. I mean, it's abhorrent, right? And so the goal is like, speak your truth, right? Because it's going to resonate with somebody, and probably more somebody's than what we currently are existing in,
right?
And so, and the table is there, and a lot of people are bending.
Yeah, and that's important to me, that we come away from the divisiveness, we come away from stereotyping. Like, people don't even know that when you vote, just because you're registered as a party, you can still vote for anybody. Yeah. Unless if you live in places like Florida, where I'm from, the primaries, whatever party you're registered in, you have to vote for that person. Then the general is there. But here in Washington State, we have a jungle ballot. So that means you can vote for anybody. It's free game. But people always have this party alignment mentality, but sometimes the people in your party ain't always good.
Absolutely, sure.
And it's always about learning to get to know your candidate. Stop listening to talking points. People are getting tired of these smear campaigns. Yeah. I know I don't care about the smear campaigns, but if it's entertaining, I do watch.
You know what?
And I laugh, and then I keep going about my day, but it never affects how I'm going to vote. You know?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. I'm not ashamed of it. I just turned 40, and I have not voted in one election, local, federal, and I'll tell you why. It's because so much of my existence has been through the lens of a minoritized person who does not see representation, and I'm constantly having to figure out where I stand in relationship to choosing the what do they call it, the lesser of two evils. And call it what you want, I don't vote for evil. I don't because
Right.
I don't want to attach myself energetically, karmically to something that does not represent me. Yeah, this person's talking about giving my community money. Well, they always talk about doing something,
Yeah,
but
but
when
do
are they
they
actually
do it?
doing it?
Yeah.
Because it's never just about helping the people who need help. Oh no, well if we pour water in the entire pot, everybody gonna rise together. How many times have we seen that? And somehow the people with the heaviest burden still at the bottom. And so why would I then participate in a system that I got to vote for evil? I'm knowing that the deliverables will never meet my community equitably or equanimity is the goal we're looking for. Like we're looking at this individualized approach to equitable systems where this group of people may not need the same thing as this group of people. Like if you got a hole in your roof, you don't need a plumber. You need a carpenter. So why are you bringing plumbers to my house?
Right.
So my goal is like for the first time since I've lived in Washington State, which is almost 20 years now, I have an opportunity to vote for someone who is representative of the community at large, not just Black folks, not just X, Y, everybody from A to Z gets represented, and that is something that makes me hopeful.
Yes. And when I was listening to NPR news last year.
I'm sorry.
And last year, and they were saying they were actually interviewing some Black people from the communities, and they said that there was a lower vote turnout rate, and especially in our community, and they were asking why they didn't get out to vote, and they said because they're tired of when they get out here and campaign, they always campaign on Black history about slavery and this was done to you guys and pointing the finger at the other party and things, and they want our vote as if we don't want safe communities like everybody else, as if we don't want to address the homelessness that they packed our communities with because they vote on stuff and then say, okay, yeah, but just put it over there in the disadvantaged community. Okay, well let's just give them all drug clinics to go ahead and hand out some drug packs in their community.
There's a needle right now by the front door, right by where a bunch of little kids just walked in here to go and read books. You think they're going to do that on the north end? There ain't no drug needles on the north end.
No.
So the point that you're making is it's literally at the front door, and it's one of the reasons why when you talk about the low voter turnout, what do we see? Like if I'm a child, I'm 10 years old, and I'm walking into the library because I want to better myself, and right here is what looks like human waste, which is right there. Used needles, and whether I recognize what that is or not, that is going to sit on my subconscious because I know that when I go over to Whole Foods, when I go to University Place or Berkeley, I'm not going to see this. And so now I'm at this place where I'm a victim because that's what they keep telling me in schools. Oh, you're oppressed. You're a victim. Well, no, I'm being victimized. There's a difference. Victim, you want that to be my identity. No, you're victimizing me. Right. You're giving me this label that is saying that, oh, we're not going to do anything about it, but this is your label. You can wear this, and whenever you get into a tough situation, just say that you're a victim. And at the end of the day, it's not empowering anyone. It's not promoting.
It's not giving you the good job that you want. The skills to get. It's not.
And at the end of the day, you're at home trying to figure out why is it that I feel so poor, I'm living poor, my mental is poor. It's a cycle. It's a hamster wheel of egregiousness that is constantly plaguing us because why would I vote for something when I don't see the benefit of it? Why would I go to school when I know that the only reason that I am there is because they need more workers and I don't want to be someone's drone? Or I know that even if I don't do anything, they're going to pass me anyway. So what's the point?
And I want to bring this conversation a little bit more. We still have the politics in it, but I'm gonna bring it back to community. And the reason why I would do that is because, like I said, I was a single mom, and granted, with my kids, my daughter was in fourth grade, my son was just in his first year of middle school. I homeschooled them, but prior to that, I was the community mom that would walk all the kids to school. But if I wasn't that community mom, in which we don't have a lot of people, because I hear that from parents here who are single parents and two-parent home, that they have to get up and go to work early. Before their kids go to school, they have to be out to work, which means their kids have to walk to school. And you know how far of a walk 2 miles is?
Especially to a 12-year or 10-year.
So if a kid stays under 2 miles from the school, no school bus picks them up. They have to walk. So there's nobody to walk your kid to school, and you have an only child, or you might have a couple of kids, but I seen moms that their kids was the only kid walking to school 2 miles to school, and they're in elementary, might be in first grade or second grade, walking to school by themselves, and you have to pass homelessness camp. You have to pass the drug needles, and some of the people there do have psychotic episodes, and that parent has to worry about while they're at work, is my child safe? Is my child going to come home from school? So now they're tossed between, do I show up late to work and then society label me as a Black person who don't want to do better because I'm more concerned about my child's safety, and then I'm going to be at work? Or do I go to work and then something happened to my child, and now all hell is going to break loose because something happened to my child? So, like when you toss with those, people make decisions based off the resources that are available to them.
Yeah.
So,
the passion in that statement was profound. I mean, I've got chills just thinking.
Because my grandmother was a pastor in Florida, and she was the community. When she passed away, they had the whole fairgrounds, and they shut down the city to have the processional. So people flew from everywhere from Church of God in Christ. And she, everybody knew her. So, I forgot where I was about to go with that. But it was about being a family. Yeah. So back in the day, when families needed stuff, our communities pulled together. Yeah. We don't have a trust in our community.
Because we don't have communities. We have neighborhoods.
Yeah, and we are so, we operate in silos.
Yeah.
And our kids need more community. There was something, hey, granted, a person might not like church. I knew people who didn't go to church who would probably say they didn't even believe in Christianity. But guess where their kids was after school? Guess what summer camp? They was in Camp Awana, during the summer. They put their kids because they knew their kids were safe. They knew their kids were getting a foundation of something. And they knew where the kids are. Nowadays, our kids are in the street. Nowadays, our kids out here. My car was stolen in October. 5 kids stole my car on camera. So, where is this to bring community? So I'm not just going to blame everything on politics and politicians. We as people in our community have a duty to our community to be pillars and to raise up, good examples.
Absolutely. And that's why one reason why I love the work that Omari's doing, because, I've had the privilege of not only being at some of the post-prison pipeline meetings at UW with Omari, but also going to Bates. We went to Bates and did that thing with the youth, and it was like 2 or 3 days. We go over there and work with them, but that's not the only thing. We went out to Echo Glen,
for sure,
and so there have been so many opportunities because of you that I've re-immersed myself into this idea of community. Because like I said earlier, to me, what I see specifically in the Black community is just a bunch of neighborhoods. We don't own our schools. We don't own a bank. We don't even own our churches most of the time. And there are other systems that you need in order to say, this is my community. And when you don't see that representation there, I can see why when we went to that one at Bates, it was almost 30 kids in there. Yeah. And only one of them had seen a positive male role model. And so prior to you showing up, what are they going to experience? And so it was profound to be a part of that with you. And I don't even think I thanked you for that, but I probably did. But thank you again, man. Because like for real, I truly believe that one of the things that takes place as adults is we have the opportunity to heal our younger selves because time is not linear. Despite what this Western lens is telling us, time is not linear. So every time you show up for a child, you're showing up for that young version of yourself that is saying, I wish there was someone who was here, who looks like me, who has had some of my similar experiences, who is here to help me. Because I know that when I went through school and I became a therapist and I started thinking about all of the broken pieces of myself, the first thing I did was I talked to my younger self, not schizophrenic, but I had an internal conversation that led to me really being introspective in such a way that was like, you know what, I had to thank myself because I did the work, I'm doing the work, and I know that it is healing parts of me that because the child self is the oldest self, it is always going to be with us, even when we're 90, 100 years old. The child self is going to stay with us because that youthful spirit of wonderment, excitement, and desire to grow and experience reality is always going to be with us. And so, thank you. And thank you too, because you are showing this generation that, hey, you know what? I don't have to participate. I have a word I like to use, but we're just going to call it the quackery. Because now my child self gets to see someone for the first time, because I don't count what happened in DC as an experience. For the first time in my life, I get to see someone who represents me running for a political office that has a potentially severe impact or a beautiful impact on my reality. And so thank you for that.
I gotta throw it right back at you and thank you because every time I've ever told you about these things, you're there, right? A lot of people, like shoot, today I was late. It slipped my mind. I can't remember that happening with you. You're there and adding tremendous value to the lives of these young people. So I appreciate you for that. And they need us, man. They need us. A lot of these youngsters, they're developing into men without any example of what a man is, any example besides, their mom in their life or an auntie or some type of powerful woman that's like holding things together because collectively as men, as black men, somewhere along the line we've been dropping the ball when it comes to our family units. There's a lot of great black fathers that I know, but through the work that I'm doing with these youth, I really see, like there's not enough young people who have that presence in their life. A lot of the time, folks use it as an excuse, you think, but this is reality, for a lot of these young people. A lot of time, it's like how you said, that victimhood. Like if you say you're a victim, then that gives you an excuse. It gives you an out.
Yeah.
But what we need to do is make sure that we fill that gap, and we feel that. But we can never fill that 24/7 presence, provider, protector type of role. But we can still play a part in showing them, like, look, there's positive black men out here who came from a struggle and still are able to make something of themselves without having to go through these cycles of incarceration, these cycles of addiction, and things of that nature. So every time someone like you shows up, that's just another possibility that's introduced to a youngster who, I mean, honestly, a lot of the youth that we're working with might be the ones who stole your car.
Ooh, man.
And you know what? And I'm gonna say I'm not mad at him because we need hope. I would have never known that I could be a politician one day. When I was in school, and we did American government, and sometimes we watch things on the TV. I think when I was in school, we were watching. I can't remember what was going on, but we were watching something, and I just thought they were actors. Because I thought, oh, we got the Constitution, those laws. That's it. That's written, and this is all I need to know for the test. I didn't know it was always an ongoing voting until they said, oh yeah, you got voter registration, but I still didn't really comprehend putting two together until I homeschooled. And when I homeschooled my kids, I had my nonprofit and we taught the youth how to write legislative bills. I did it. We would have politicians come in. One in particular, State Representative Jimmy T. Smith, would teach them how to write legislative bills, take them to Tallahassee, to the Capitol, and all those different things. And then when I started seeing that I could run, it was like, how come I have like a when I grow up spoken word speech that I give? And in it, I talk about in our communities, when we grow up, when we're kids, we're told you want to be a doctor or a lawyer because they make money. You're going to live good if you're a doctor or a lawyer. So that's all. Okay, I want to be a doctor or a lawyer. I don't know if I'm passionate about that. I'm not passionate about that. As you get a little bit older, it changes to I want to be a singer or a rapper or a movie star, or basketball player, because that's what we see in our communities. Yeah. That's what we have access to.
Minus the statistics that show that less than 1 in 10,000 is actually going to make it, or roughly 1 in 10,000 going to make it into any particular sport.
Right. And so that then your hope level drops with that statistic of all of you aren't going to make it. We all just, and that's all I see parents pushing. Oh, this scholarship, sports scholarship, but we're more than that. Yeah. And but I never knew that, hey, I could have been working on politics all this time because I'm a passionate advocator. I was an advocate in school. I did things, and I got spoke before my high school principal for different things to be in. Was it enacted for clubs and those type of things? Same thing in college, but nobody never put 2 and 2 to say you might be a good politician one day. Because a lot of them have started from high school.
They've been groomed for a long time in order to get this nepotic system running.
So they have these rooms they can walk in. I don't have any rooms I can walk in. But you know what? I can't say I don't have any rooms, and I can't say I don't have nobody, because the community is rooms, and the community is somebody that nobody never thinks that we're worth having a seat at the table.
Sure.
Yeah. Like, what's the point of having a seat at the table when it's just a token spot, when it's just the virtue signaling that has been rampant in Washington State for as long as I've been here. The idea that, oh yeah, we got one of y'all in here, and you'll go into a room. I was in a master's program, and I'm the only in that entire program for the entire 3 years I was in that program. Now, if I'm someone who wants to see change, equitable change, holistic change in my community, because I think that relationships are important when it comes to therapy, and I am one in maybe 100 people who look like me, who have my shared experience as a Black man in this country, in this state as a therapist, what do I expect my clientele to look like? Like, they're not going to show up because they're like, oh, I don't have any hope of meeting someone like me. Do you know that no matter how, put it this way, 6 months is the average time to find a therapist. It's even higher when you start specifying the demographic of your therapist, especially when you get to people who look like me as a therapist. And so there are very few seats at the table because that is an act of ambassadorship, of advocacy. I don't just open the door so you can walk in and sit down. There is active participation in bringing a change that is more than just BLM signs in front of $1 million house, more than just putting a Obama or Harris Biden bumper sticker on your $100,000 Tesla. It is so much more than that. And unfortunately, people don't get the message. And so us three, people like us have to go into these spaces and sometimes disrupt it. But for the goal of disenfranchising those narratives, because if we don't go in there and challenge those narratives, the children are going to look at us and they're going to be like, you guys failed us. Because I remember looking at adults and thinking, you failed, you failed, you failed. And one day when I'm old enough to stand on my 2 feet, not knowing that at 10 years old I could have did this. I could have been out there changing the world with the young change makers every day. But I looked at them and I was like, you know what? I don't want to be like them when I grow up. And that's who is sitting here right now, is the person who said, I don't want to be like them. It's not the 40-year-old version of me. It is the 10-year-old version of me, the 12-year-old version that said, I want to see different.
Yeah. And would you like to share with us some of the things that you do? Because like I said, when I'm governor, we're going to make sure we're having a seat at the table with our communities, that our communities are having a seat at the table, every aspect of the community, so we can provide wraparound services. And the only way to do that is, like you said, having representation from the community. Same thing like East Coast is tired of the west side of Washington being the dictator over there, then they should come have a seat at the table, because what pertains to them should be addressed as well. Yeah. But today we're addressing restorative justice and some things that we can do to add into these policies to make sure that our communities are thriving, that we're not being wearing a label of victimhood, but we're defining our own narrative of the American dream.
For sure. I think some of the most important work I do is with the young people who are attached to Pierce County Juvenile Court. And I spend time sitting in the courtroom, just observing things, there to show support to the young people. But I might be there, they're not the first name that gets called. So I get to see a lot of different cases. And I used to work for the ACLU of Washington as a juvenile justice researcher, where part of my job was actually sitting in the courtroom doing observations. And the simple fact that it's still this adversarial system for young people, the simple fact that they might have a defense attorney who's a fill-in for that day, don't know them, and they're making major life decisions with no parent involved, no type of adult advocate who's there to look like a guardian ad litem type person to, let me make sure we're working in the best interest of this young person. I've seen young people sent to prison just because they didn't have a foster care placement. Like they're like, it's better for him to be at Green Hill because if we release him, we don't have anywhere to release him to right now. Even at Raymond Hall, like a parent refusing to pick their kid up, they're gonna stay stuck in Raymond Hall. They're gonna play this little game where, we could release them to foster care. Oh, there's no foster care placement, so they're right back in Raymond Hall. Or, it's just this dumb game that we're playing with kids' lives. So I think I want to see our elected officials do what I've done: sit in these courtrooms and let's see what moves you. And I know there's a lot of different. As someone that's high up as governor, they have a whole state to run, right? But I feel like this is one of the major places where our state is failing. And I've gone to Thurston County, Pierce County, King County, Okanogan County, just all kinds of different counties throughout our state and see the same thing taking place. And it's like, I can't see how anyone can allow this to happen on their watch, where there's young people who are giving up years of their lives at 13, 14, 15, all because of this adversarial system where you got a prosecutor who is recommending, let's destroy this person's life instead of rebuild them. There's no restorative justice. They don't even care about the victims. Because if you're talking about restorative justice, you got to elevate the voice of that victim. What's going to make you whole again? Punishing this kid, locking them up for years, does not make a victim whole again.
Especially if it's a crime of poverty, which is a whole different conversation, but one that is largely impacting these youth. Like, the joyriding and the silliness aside, like there are children stealing food to survive. There are children stealing clothes to have something to wear to school so they don't get teased. I mean, we could go into a host of things that are taking place that land children in front of you and in front of these judges and these systems. And we don't have that kind of time, but it's tantamount to insanity to sit in a space and expect people to thrive in such a way when the bare minimum of Maslow's hierarchy isn't even met.
Not at all.
The bare minimum. If you're not familiar with Maslow's hierarchy, look it up because it is really a great indication of what these systems do when they disenfranchise. Because it's not just about, this person is black, this person is white. It is systemic issues that are specific to certain communities or where leniency is met based off of appearance versus lack of that, common appearance that is receiving that support. Two parents showing up, we know what the statistics are going to be like. Their parents showed up, so they get the empathy, they get the mercy of the court. This person, the mom didn't even show up because she's got to work because she's got 2 other kids she's got to support. Man. So no one's here to support this child. Sin is to jail.
And these young people are in survival mode. They don't know what to do out here. They're trying to find their way just like anybody else. Yeah. And like I said, I've seen too many on my caseload. Ones who have touched the foster care system, ones that caught their first charge at school. Like right now, we're in at the Spanaway Library. The Bethel School District is notorious for calling the police on these kids, criminalizing just youthful behavior, where they caught their first charge and were never able to bounce back, suspending kids for months at a time. If you're disengaged from school for 3 months, what are you doing during that time? You're for one, you're super bored. Boredom alone is dangerous.
And you're gonna find something to entertain yourself, something that you think is funny. And nowadays we have TikTok, so people try to do stuff, which is why people have to always put those little clauses that says don't do dangerous stuff to submit. But guess what? They gonna try to do anyhow.
Yeah, eating Tide
Yeah.
Pods. Eating Tide Pods.
Yes. So it is important that we have everyone sitting at the table. I attended Governor Inslee's first annual equity summit.
Mm.
And when I'm governor, of course, I'm going to keep that annual equity summit, because I think it's a good thing. It's about everyone coming to have a seat at the table. What I didn't like about it was not including everybody at the table. It said that it was including everybody at the table, but when you're standing up there giving speeches saying, yes, and those ballot deniers, those Trump supporters, those Republicans, all white supremacists, you just labeled a whole group of people just because you disagreed with them. So why would I want to come have a seat at the table?
And you just dismiss the people who aren't white, who have critical thought and decide that, you know what, I actually like some of the things Trump said, or some of the things that the
Or
Republicans.
they might have not agreed with the ballots.
Yeah.
Because face it, Democrats have was it Dukakis running against George Bush that time? They wanted to challenge the ballots, and they said ballot fraud. We constantly have on both sides saying ballot fraud, so we all know it's ballot fraud around here. So to say those ballot deniers are all white supremacists, then all of us are.
It's dystopian. Well, it's just dystopianism at its finest, because where do we see people attacking their political rivals? Where do we see people saying, oh, this party, they use this as a wedge to try to discredit this system? You know, it's very interesting when you look at history and you see the ways in which these boxes are constructed, these narratives are constructed. Because what it does is it limits critical thought. It limits the ability to have a differing opinion, one that may actually be educated, but because I got an R or a D by my name, you automatically think I'm an extreme leftist, liberal, or I'm an alt-right, or I'm an Uncle Tom because I'm black and I actually have a lot of conservative views on how we should operate in our communities, because there is a denigration of values in our community.
I meet a lot of black Democrats who have a lot of conservative views. So it's like nobody in no party really, to me, agrees with everything that their party says or does, because at the end of the day, we're all individuals, we're all unique. We might agree with something that is at the core of, like, if I have to pick what is at the core that is really the most, because that's what I was told in school. Pick the top three that's the most important to you, and then that make your choice, because everything in this is not going to be your thing. But but when they did the labeling, it was like I was looking around like, so I guess they're not going to be allowed to say anything if we're supposed to be having an equity summit, because it would be nice for us to have a seat at the table and talk.
Yeah.
Where's the misconception? Where's the misunderstanding? And put those aside, because at the end of the day, to me, your vote should never determine division or you're drawing a line, because everybody has a different way that they think of why I'm going to vote this way, why I choose this, and that's your choice. Yeah. But don't bring it in our community as to if we don't vote the same way, that all as a collectively as a mob mindset, then we're all against each other or we're not black.
Yeah,
that's not cool.
In a space like that, if everybody votes the same, thinks the same, has the same political views, and I mean, they're really just playing follow the leader, it's all checking a box. Like, we're not trying to have an equity symposium. We're trying to be able to say we had an equity symposium.
Yeah, it's smooth. It's
virtue signaling.
It's virtue signaling, smooth brain politics. There's no critical thought. There's no nuance to differentiation of thought. And what ends up happening is you get people like Inslee, who largely goes uncontested. And it's great that he's actually getting out of here, because, you know, although he has his golden boy that he's putting on the ballot, you know,
we don't need more leadership who can get the Supreme Court to take away, when people vote majority something and he don't like that vote, then you come and take it. That's a dictatorship.
Yeah.
When I'm governor, you hired me to be governor. You hired me to work for you. You didn't hire me to tell you what to do. You didn't hire me to be your queen of England or nothing. You hired me to listen to the voices of the people, and that is exactly what I'm going to do, because I know what it's like to be black and what it's like to be white, because my dad's white and my mom's black. So I felt that. I came through the time of when I was born right after
Loving versus Virginia.
Yeah, love versus when interracial marriages was was allowed. So when that was happening, guess what? We still had some contentions going on and some things to go through. So yes, I felt it from both black and white. So I know what everybody's feeling on both sides. So we're not going to sit here and act like it's one or the other. And that's what I've been told by a certain person that's from the NAACP. Pick one or the other, and that's not fair. No, we're not doing this.
Yeah.
We can do these things together. We can work together. We don't have to oust all white people and label all white people, because then that means I gotta disenfranchise half of myself. I have to say that my family, my white side of my family, who loved me, who cared for me, who accepted me, I have to hurt them. I'm not doing that. And to be for this side to feel this way, I have to do that to black people. No, I'm not going to do that. I identify as black because that's the community I grew up in. That's who I was around. That's the culture I know and things. But it doesn't take away from my white dad.
Yeah,
my dad lives with me.
Yeah, and I think anyone who expects it, it's very similar to, I think, if you look at ideologies, right? These ideologies, if you look like this, then you must think like this. If you pass or you don't pass, paper bag test. Okay, well, you're just light enough to pass or just dark enough not to be included. Like there's all of these little idiosyncrasies as a nation that we have. And in Washington State, somehow folks seem to think that Washington State is devoid of those idiosyncrasies, and we're not. And in fact, I would dare say the hyper liberalism has allowed a lot of the what they call microaggressions, this slight racism that exists. There's no such thing. The act of imposing your will on someone is not a micro. The act of disenfranchising someone through thought, action, or deed is not a microaggression. And the act of telling someone to deny part of themselves is definitely problematic. And so this state has, for a long time, since I've been here, it has had this, well, they don't really use umbrellas here, but it has this umbrella
from here.
It has this umbrella of, well, at least we're not like those people down there. At least we don't have, we love our colored people. We're so diverse, we're so equitable. And they just sit under that umbrella that, oh, we don't have the problems of the South. Yeah.
And to me, that's the most discriminative thing. Anybody can say, oh, I love black people, or I have Black Lives Matter up. To me, you've just put yourself in that category of discrimination because I'm from the South. And hashtag I'm politically our good white folks down there, if they racist, they're not gonna do it to your face because they know they need our money.
Yeah.
Since I've been here, my daughter, when she was 15, walked into the Safeway gas station near us and things. The elderly white lady waited till the black man walked out. And she turned around, she said, I wish you niggers would leave and go back to your country, to a child in the store by herself. And when I made my post in the next door community, I said, my issue is not her. My issue was all the white people standing around. Because if we want to bring unity, somebody should have turned around and said, no, ma'am. No, ma'am.
Yeah.
That's somebody's child. I dare you to say that to that black man that just walked out. Or I dare you to go find her mom and say that to her. Mm-hmm. But don't do that to a child.
And that creates more of those problems. When children, to that very point, when I was working at Jason Lee Middle School, which they changed the name to something else now, but when I was working there, I was participating in this after-school program called the Bobcat Club, right? And I would listen to the stories of the children talking about, oh yeah, I had this teacher that told me that because I'm black, I'm never going to amount to anything. I had one teacher said that black people are all victims. Like, these are things that children are telling me. And then
was it a white teacher?
Yeah.
Only reason why I asked that is because mine was by a black teacher.
Yeah. And so
it's like we can't label and say white people do it.
Absolutely. And then but that internalized idea of victimhood and oppression is real. I was almost lynched as a child, and I was almost killed by 10 black men in the military. And so I'm not one of these people who's going to say, well, I understand why these guys in the military did it. It's just, but then look at these guys who grew up in the South under, I mean, Virginia was the last Confederate state. I can't look at them and not have the same understanding and see that both of these both of these groups were ignorant. Both of these groups grew up under very similar systems to Washington State. Oh, it's just the way things are. We're not as bad as them. It's just the way things are. Well, until we have people who are challenging the narratives, going into these places where the status quo is so deeply rooted that you couldn't knock it over with a windstorm, nothing's going to change.
And I'm going to say that is a status quo. So whether it's Republican or Democrat, let's take that away from this conversation. Republican, because this will come from any side. When somebody tells you, oh yeah, I don't think you should vote for her because she's never had a political seat before. Well, let's get an understanding. We've had 5 presidents in the past who did not have any political background, and you guys were just fine with that, and they did a good job. Then if they say that, oh, well, then all she knows about handling a household budget, well, and you got billions of dollars that you're going to be managing. Guess what? Your governor does not manage that budget. He has people telling him what to do. And to go back to my brother Omari's point of like when you're up there in the governor and you might not have time to do these. When I'm governor, yes, I will. I will be there to your child's school. Maybe I can't make it to everybody's school, but I'm going to make it into some of our disenfranchised communities to let them see representation, to let them know that there's hope and they can. You know why? Because 20 hours out of the day, out of the week, I've already interviewed politicians, lieutenant governor. I've been to his office and interviewed them. 20 hours out of the week, you know what they're doing? They're not doing politics. They're out there trying to get money for their next campaign. That's what they're doing. People are in their office grooming them to do nothing but get money to try to be governor again. So they're not concerned with what is going on with you in your community. But I will be, because guess what? I don't need them 20 hours to try to win office again. Because if I'm doing a good job, you're gonna vote for me again. So I'm gonna take them 20 hours and I'm gonna go back to the community and I'm gonna see about our kids in the community. That's what I'm gonna do. So when people are telling you about that budget, guess what? It's about bringing in seasoned people. And I do have a couple of seasoned. One who is a retired veteran that has handled a Pentagon budget before. Yes, I'm going to be bringing in these type of people with me to handle the budget, because that's not going to be all me. And it's not about getting here and acting like I know everything. It's about having people who specialize in this. And that's the thing about being a chef. A chef is not all the seasons that he put in the mix to make it. It's knowing what to mix in. And yes.
I love it. Wow. You know what? I felt my blood pressure go up like 4 points just now, and I'm just thinking like, man, but to your point, right? You were the first one documented to go to all 39 counties before even what's somebody's name?
Bob Ferguson.
Yeah, him. Before him, and it's to your point that if people are actually about the people, they're going to figure out how to make things happen, despite the roadblocks, despite the things that you don't know. Because it's not about what you don't know, it's how are you going to integrate people into the system who do know, so that you can work together. Because ultimately, if anyone thinks that the president is running the country, they are short-sighted at understanding the mission of the presidency. Anyone thinks the governor runs the entire state, they don't understand politics. It is not the governor's job to go and hold the hands of every office head to get things done. Yeah. There is an accountability system, a checks and balance system that makes sure that these things are done. You are the person at the top of that who's ultimately going to take the brunt of whatever comes, whether good or bad. If you don't do your job, people are going to know. If you do your job, people are going to know. And that's something that I think folks need to know.
Yes.
But we could talk about that on another show.
and like he said, document it to be the 39 states, because in August 25th, I made a post. I just finished 30 counties. And as I went to each of the 39 counties, I would stop at the county line and take a picture up under the county sign, holding my campaign. So that was my proof, because I don't have the luxury of getting media recognitions as my opponents. However, when I said I've done 30 counties and I will finish up my 9 in September, 3 days later, Bob Ferguson made a press release of he just finished a summer long 39 county tour, and people are asking where, like, if you are who you are, we should have known that you've been in our county. How come nobody knows that you've been to the county? I documented mine. I posted mine on social media because I knew that somebody was going to try to coattail off of what I was doing to try to be the first of something. So he had to jump in and do that, make his press release. Kudos to you for copying me.
Yeah.
Let me know that I'm doing something good.
What they say in that movie, they hate us because they ain't us. I said it right. It wasn't Freudian. It's one of those things where we know we the status quo when it comes to leading by example. There is a whole lot of history when it comes to invention and to changing the structure of things, into battling systems of oppression, to implementing policies. I mean, the Black Panther Party is the basis for the welfare system. They're the basis for it and get no credit for it. And so we can look at all of the different communities who have implemented policies that the federal government now implement, that the state governments now implement. They'll never give those disenfranchised communities credit, but we as people are the ones who should hold that history, so that when it comes time for some, I don't want to use my expletives, but when it comes time for us to have that conversation with some troll on social media who has an archaic perspective, we'll just put it at that.
That's how we show it over that show. Welcome, family, friends, and trolls.
Yes, welcome. And so when you're talking to those folks who have those archaic mentalities of, oh, these folks just want handouts. These folks, well, let's put it this way: if I'm going to a job that I hate, because most people don't like their jobs, and I'm paying roughly around 40% of my taxes to the state or to the federal government, and then I'm finding myself without the ability to pay for Medicaid, even to pay for medical, to pay for dental, to pay for all of the things that I need. Then if I have children, I can't afford this because you guys are taking 40% of my check every time I get paid. Somebody should be doing something for me. Because if you look at every first world country, let's go to the homogenous nations in Scandinavia, right? Those people pay roughly around 45% taxes. They get free education, they get free healthcare, dental, they get maternity leave. I mean, I could go down the list of at least 20 different things that these countries offer, largely because they're homogenous and they don't deal with the systemic racism that we have in a lot of places, because it's easy when you can see yourself in people to support them. We are a part of this grand experiment called the United States, where people through atrocities, people through hope and endeavor have came here and have tried to implement the best approach to life that they can. And so there are folks we know both here and in other states that will vote against their own better interest, their own self-improvement, because they don't want folks who don't look like them to benefit. Now, you can have your philosophies on that all you want, but if you're the kind of person that will cut off your nose to spite your face, I don't know that I want to engage with you, because there's no critical thought there, and we're back to that smooth-brained approach to reality where no real thought can get lodged in the crevices, because there ain't no crevices. You got a cue ball brain.
Yeah.
And so how do we then challenge that? How do we challenge narratives with someone who is hell-bent on misperceiving or misconstruing or assuming that all those brown and black, and I hate using colors because it's disruptive. And I don't use BIPOC because it's ignorant.
Yeah.
Because then it
homogenizes
our struggles, independent struggles.
People of color. Okay,
well,
you just restated colored folks.
Colored folks, yeah.
That's all you said. You said that's bad to say, but you said
it's rebranded. It's like the alt-right, it's just rebranded. It's just good marketing. But it just puts us in this place where nothing moves forward, because I would rather not have it and struggle and damn near starve, and my lights get cut out in the wintertime,
than see someone who I have been told is benefiting off of a system that they didn't pay into, despite the fact that they got a job and still can't afford to live.
It's insane. It's insane. When I was broke, I didn't realize, how messed up this tax system really is.
Yeah.
Like you from the income tax, then you got to pay the sales tax,
Gas
you're paying
tax.
property tax. If you decide to go into business for yourself, you're paying the self-employment tax. There's just so many different taxes that I feel are designed to keep people from experiencing social mobility.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the idea of being a business owner, in theory, like if I sell apples, I'm the only person selling apples. Or maybe there's a few of us who own an apple orchard, and we come together and say, let's set this price for these apples. We pick these apples, we hire the people to pick the apples, we go through all the necessary processes to take care of these apples and get them to market. Then you got some asshole, you've got some politician, named Jay Inslee, for example, because, let's say Yay Inslee, who is sitting writing policy 1,000 miles away from you, stating that, let's make it so these people can't work effectively. Let's make sure that they can't hire the staff that they need and give these people enough, benefit, enough pay to make this work worth it. And I'm not going to get into the legislation behind that. That'll be another conversation we have. But It does exist. And so I'm going to tax you in a way that makes it just above margin, so that it almost isn't even worth you running your business anymore. What's the point? What is the incentive in, say, Eastern Washington to provide something that is integral to the functioning of the society, which is food? Without food, many an army has been destroyed from hunger. So if we're creating policies that are disenfranchising farmers, disenfranchising business owners, where is the incentive to want to work?
That food they threw away during the pandemic.
And so
they had those farmers throw away.
And we're back to square one about people not having adequate everything, anything, necessities, children included. Now children are starving. They're going to school hungry because government policies preventing their parents from being able to make. You might make a livable wage until you hit overtime, or you hit $20 an hour. You're like, oh, finally, I'm not making a pittance. Then artificial inflation is up. Then the taxes increase. Then they're trying to convince us, oh yeah, we need to increase property taxes because these children are failing. And they're not talking about why the children are failing. They're just trying to hey, we got to raise property taxes. Well, what about the people on fixed incomes? What about the people who are taking care of multiple generations who are on fixed incomes? They're not considering these people because they're so far removed. You think Ye Yin is worried about money? You think Bob is worried about we're just going to blur the names out. You think these career politicians and officials are worried about whether their lights are going to get cut off, whether they're going to have enough money to buy food for their children and their grandchildren? No. It's people who are sitting at this table. If we have a car accident, if we miss too much work, if we don't get the opportunities that are necessary.
Bills going unpaid.
Bills. And
then you're going to say that we asking for a handout.
Yeah, despite the fact that I'm paying almost 40% in taxes every time I get paid.
Right.
So how do you justify it? And so I can sit here and talk all day.
Well, I'm gonna wrap it up, and I'm gonna wrap it up with you, Amari. So I don't want to be like that candidate or that governor who just throws my views off on anyone. I'm just sharing my experience. So I would like you to share, even if you disagreed with anything, because I won't bite your head off.
For sure. Only
time I bite anybody's head off is like my promises I've made in past podcasts. If you spit on me, you hit me. I promise you're going to get what you came for. Just saying. Go ahead.
Show and prove.
What was the question again?
Public education system, show up again.
I got to think because she talking about beating up on
I agree with everything she said.
We're good.
Who's right?
But yes, like anything you would like to contribute to restorative justice, how can we make policies better when I'm governor, how to make sure that people who are given second chances, youth, even youth who are not in the system that we don't want to go into, so we want to do preventive maintenance. How can we create policies and also make sure you're having a seat at the table?
Yeah, I think that's the key part. The last thing you said, having a seat at the table, the inclusion of the people who are usually left out. I'm one person, one person, one person. It needs to be the collective who make the decisions at the end of the day. And how does that happen? It can be really difficult because you have a lot of different needs, a lot of different perspectives. But the more time you spend with the people, listening to the people, and actually capturing, what they're sharing with you, and then going back and reviewing it. Once again, there's a lot of box checking out there. There's going to be people who hold community forums. They'll come to a library like this, fill it up with 100 people who are all sharing their stuff, and ain't nobody writing down nothing nobody's saying. It's like we get to say that we did it. So what I believe that you're going to do a great job. Like there were some things you said where we might have different perspectives. Like for example, I can't imagine what it's like to have a white parent because it's not my reality, right?
Yeah.
That's your reality. So you've been shaped by that in a way that I haven't been an experience that I don't have. So we need to really look at, especially in the state of Washington, if anybody who gets on the ballot and they make it, oh, this is just a black campaign for black people and things like, you're not gonna make it very far because this is a very white state. Like the very white state of Washington is not black. So I love a lot of the things you're saying about like this goes beyond race. It's not about black. It's not about white. And there's a lot of class issues where, if you go sit in them courtrooms, like I said, you'll see a little white kid here and there who's mixed up into the same things that you see a lot of the young black kids mixed into because their parents are also in addiction. They've also been abandoned. They've also been neglected. They've been getting in trouble at school because that system is just messed up and not using restorative practices, but instead relying on punitive type discipline. So, I'm excited to see how your campaign develops, and this has been great to talk with you guys.
Yes, indeed. Thank you. Do you have any remarks?
Oh
yes, he would.
Let me not. No, I just I think I stated most of just the level of appreciation I have for being here today. It is a surreal feeling to sit in the presence of a true change maker. I've known Omari for years. And I've had the pleasure of meeting you this year, and to be in a room with two people who have such huge capacity, it's a gift, and one that I don't take lightly, and one that I will leverage in ways that will allow us to build a better community because we all we got. We can worry about what's going on in DC, but here in Washington State, it would be crazy. As a therapist, as my clinical perspective, it'd be crazy to dismiss the necessary changes that need to make to change the status quo. Because if we don't, we're going to get another, 4 years of out of my opinion, and nothing will change. And it will be the same good old boys club. It will be the same politics as usual. It will be the people being habitually looked over for those big donors, for those people who have already influenced the politic parties. It's just going to be more of the nepotism. And we need something beyond that.
Yeah. I know myself personally, I would feel hopeless as a community if Bob Ferguson was the one that won. I'm just put that out there.
You're not by yourself. I've heard quite a few people say that they're tired of it, and I'm one of those people. I mean, I'm already planning my parachute to get out of here because
especially since I've been one that I actually watched how many times he's taken people to court, taking good people to court, or just because they disagree. Inslee, same thing. So it's like if that's going to be the type of governorship that we have, is somebody who throws temper tantrums because that's the culture they're raised in, where they get their way, throw temper tantrums, get Supreme Court judges. Then I don't want to be in a state like that.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that's a great way to close because I think you're going to have a lot of people at the end of this message who really are like, you know what? I'm glad somebody put words to how I'm feeling.
Yep. And so to that end, we're going to close out Removing Labels podcast. but it's always so important to know that this is a true grassroots campaign, which means that I'm funding this out of my pocket. Now, when they're funding, they have millions and people with money behind them, but I'm just a regular person. I live in a historically disadvantaged community. So when you don't see campaign signs out there, I don't have money for campaign signs.
Because your car was stolen and they were in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
As a matter of fact, we need you to start asking around because you probably know who did it. Let me stop. I'm sorry.
No, it's true, man.
so it's important that you donate. $5 goes a long ways. If I can get 50,000 people share this video, share my campaign, heck, just share my donation page. $5 is all I'm asking you. And if you got more, if you like a person like me, I'm not gonna give you $5. I'm gonna give you $20 because that's the new $5.
Yeah.
But whatever you can give, the maximum you can donate is $4,800 per person, per business. If you are a nonprofit or a corporation, you cannot donate unless you're a corporation with a political action committee. But other than that, everybody else, $5, and you have to live within anywhere in the United States, not other countries. So if you are from another country and you got people back here, tell them to donate, because that donation is very important. Some things that we could use help with on our campaign is t-shirts, because people would like to buy t-shirts. I'm not savvy with that. I've pretty much since the beginning been doing everything like my website and those. I have somebody on the team who just joined our team who has taken over website. And good old Sean here has jumped in to be secondary campaign, campaign assistant when my husband is at work. And then my husband jumps in, he hardcore going at it. And we have people in our communities, but everybody does not have the skills to do the things that we really need on our campaign. So they're doing their best. I also take youth. So if you have kids, like I said, when I was in high school, I didn't know about this. So if you have kids who want to learn how to make critical decisions, learn how to do the research for themselves to help do research for the campaign and on different topics of why things aren't getting done and how can we create policies for that, I welcome the youth to come in and join in with us, because that's mentorship alongside this whole campaign. And then look, for them, it'll be like I was with the first Black woman in the history of the United States, helping her out. And that's not being said as a virtual signaling thing, but that's just being said because historical wise, we all like to say, I was a part of something in history. So check us out, peoplebeforeparty.com, hit that donate button, and we will see you next Wednesday. Can't tell you what our topic is because I don't have the thing right now.
Yeah.
But you'll see next week.
Yeah.
And because we're just going to be unboxing our policies as we go. Talk to you soon.